Hi, and welcome to part 4 of the webinar series on Multilingual Academic Corpus of Assignments, Writing and Speech, MACAWS, by Bruno Sommer, Alexei Novikov, Adriana Picarel, and Dr. Shirley Staples. This webinar will focus on genre/register awareness in Russian. As a disclaimer, we do not equate genre and register, but rather we're using these terms in a very broad general sense. Both genre and register make explicit the association between form and function. The difference is that the register approach emphasizes frequency of occurrence and co-occurrence of features and their functions throughout each text, while the genre approach focuses on specific functions, also called rhetorical moves, used to construct texts that are recognizable by members of a community. First, in this webinar, I'll discuss defining characteristics of registers. Second, I'll present you a DDL activity focusing on genre register awareness in Russian. And third, I'll discuss how genre and register approach compares to and can be complemented with a more traditional teaching approach. And finally, I'll highlight the importance of genre and register awareness approach. As you're watching this webinar, in some way you're already involved with MACAWS, either directly or indirectly. If you'd like to get more involved, please let us know, because one of the central principles of MACAWS is that it is created for instructors and with the help of instructors. As I already mentioned, this webinar will focus on registers. First, registers share a communicative and situational context, such as production circumstances of the text, the topic and purpose of the text, etc. Second, registers should have frequently occurring and co-occurring linguistic features. For example, first and second personal pronouns and questions frequently co-occur in spontaneous conversation. Third, these frequent features should be related to the communicative and situational characteristics mentioned above in a functional way. So the reason, for example, why first and second pronouns and questions are so frequent in conversation is because of the communicative nature of conversation that involves questions and answers, and also situational characteristics of conversation that typically involves two or more people. Here's an example of the DDL activity that I developed for genre/register awareness in Russian. As you can see, there are two sets of concordance lines. The one to the left is based on text about Russian food, and the one on the right uses text from a food blog. These texts were written by students in different sections of the second semester of Russian. To show you more specifically what features are being looked at here, I will zoom in each of the set of concordance lines individually in the next slide. So here's the first set of concordance lines based on the text about typical Russian food. The key words and context here are verbs in the present tense. So over here, such as love, serve, eat, love, etc. So after a quick look, you might notice that if you know Russian, that all these verbs are in third person plural. And most of the words to the left of the verbs, so over here, mean Russians. So for example, Russians often eat soups, or Russians eat sweets, or Russians love tea, etc. Here's the second set of concordance lines based on the text from a food blog. Looking through the list of the verbs, you might notice that they're all first-person singular. So over here. And they're all used with the pronoun ya to the left. As you can see, ya is also part of the keywords in context, which means I in English. So for example, when I order dessert, or when I cook food, or because I love hamburgers. Reiterating the characteristics of registers, we can see that the two sets of texts that we had looked at are different. First, they're different in their communicative and situational context. The Russian food texts were based on summarizing factual research. In contrast, the food blogs are based on the students' personal experiences. Second, the texts differ in their frequency of linguistic features. And again, here we have the third person plural that forms that are dominant in the Russian food versus the first person singular verbs that are prevalent in the food blogs. And lastly, these texts are different in their functional interpretations of these linguistic features. So here we have summarizing factual research about typical things that Russians do versus sharing personal experiences in a food blog. And notice how the functional characteristics are similar to the communicative and situational context. A detailed prompt for this activity can be found in the supplemental PDF materials, but here are some ideas of what can be done with the two sets of concordance lines that I had presented in this webinar. Depending on your beliefs about second language acquisition and teaching, you might be more familiar with either the task to the left or to the right. What I'm trying to show here is that the genre/register awareness activities don't have to replace your current curriculum, but can work in tandem. For example, as a register awareness activity, students can discuss how the verb use is different between the two registers and why. As a more traditional activity, students can look for verb matches between the two concordances, and in case of no match, provide the missing conjugations. To conclude, I wanted to provide some more compelling arguments for using the genre/register awareness approach to creating your activities. First, as you might have seen from your own teaching experience, grammar is traditionally taught in isolation. And that's why register a genre awareness approach can serve as a platform for connecting isolated grammatical forms to their situated meaning, then their served functions, and then even their connection to register. Second, this approach is both inductive and explicit. And what that means is that the students are involved in both discovering patterns on their own and explicitly talking about these patterns, which could reinforce their learning. Third, genre/register awareness can promote overall language awareness, which has been shown to be beneficial for learners. So this was the end of the webinar on pedagogical materials in genre/register awareness for Russian, part 4. The next webinar in our series will be on lexicogrammar in Portuguese, so number 5. And thank you for watching this webinar, and I hope you check out the next one. Bye-bye.